Hey, what's up, YouTube? So, today I have for you my final revision of the bolt action click flick pen. So, for those that are not familiar, sorry, I'm been quite ill for a while now, so if I don't sound too excited, that is why. But anyways, getting into this, I actually designed this thing while I was getting cancer treatments, so just a little backstory. It gave me something to do, keep my mind off of it. Anyways, so I've done this thing has morphed a lot. This is probably 10 plus revisions of this pen to wind up here. This one works very well for me. I can use it at work. I can drop it on the floor. No issues with it. The ink doesn't break. The pen doesn't break. Everything on it's great. You know, probably the flimsiest part is the clip, which the clip only takes about 10 minutes to print. So if it breaks, you can just make another one. So anyways, I'm going to turn each of the individual parts off down to the clip, and then we'll go over print orientations for each part and all my little recommendations. So here we go. Turning off these. And yes, the threads are a separate print. There we go. Okay, so we got it down to the clip. Alright, so this is the clip. You print on this nice flat surface right here. And on all of these prints, don't use a brim. Brims will give you really nasty edges and the pen won't look very nice. So just don't use a brim. Make sure you have good elephant foot settings on your printer. Make sure you get a nice print. Yeah, so there's the clip. Print on that. Print two clips at a time. All of these smaller parts. God, I keep getting text messages. It is killing me. Anyways, all of these smaller parts, except for the threads, I recommend printing two at a time because usually you'll get one that's slightly higher quality than the other one. So get this done, and then for post-processing, wrap this end right here in some Kapton tape, and then you can heat this section up with a hair dryer, and then you can just bend it with your finger into a nice clip shape so it works well on your pocket. So yeah, and if I didn't say it, 0.12 layer height on this guy. Let's get into the next part. So this is the bolt. I would also go 0.12 on this. Print on this nice flat surface right here. It will be much stronger in that orientation. If you print it on its end right here, it's going to break. It will break right here where the hardware goes. It's just not strong enough. The layers will fail right there. And then this is just a little indent here where the Parker G2 articulates with it. All right, on to the next piece. So the main body of the pen. So this thing, you know, I definitely put a lot of time into this. Put some nice knurling on there, similar to like knurling that you see on a firearm. You print on this nice flat surface right here. Also no brims on this. And I use Prusa Slicer, so I usually put some organic supports right here. Just right in there. And that's really the only supports that this thing needs. And you just print this at 0.16, and it usually takes, I think, about 2 hours on my printer to print. You know, if you got my printer can go faster than that, but I usually print at 0.16 and I print slowly, so I just get really high quality prints. You know, everybody's into this really fast printer thing nowadays, but man, your prints just look so much nicer, and they're so much stronger if you just print a little slower. Anyways, moving on to the, and on the last time I printed this, I also like painted the Z-seam underneath where the clip goes right here. So the seam, at least for this section, is totally hidden. You know, that's up to you how you normally do your seams, but that's what I did on this one, and it mostly worked. On to the next part. Oops, what is going on? There we go. Okay, the threads. This is the most important part of the print. These threads right here, and I'm going to turn this guy off for a second. So these threads, these were initially integrated into that main body, but what was happening was like you drop the pen on the floor one time, And then, oh, another damn text is pissing me off. Excuse my potty mouth. The threads will break right here. And that's just no good. So, you know, something I learned while doing a lot of firearms printing is that you can print things at a 45-degree angle to make them much stronger. So what I've done, I canted the whole thing, have this nice little flat surface right here, just print this whole thing at a 45. And I just kind of cut this section off too. This just gives you your tree supports a nice surfaces to put the trees against. So I would use organic supports on this. So you just go in and Prusa slicer or whatever, and I paint the organic supports on here. And so you print this at a 45, and these threads, I mean, they're crazy strong. I tried breaking them with a pair of pliers, and I couldn't. I just straight up couldn't do it. So that'll make them work really well. Let me turn the there we go, there's the main body again. So when you go to, so you have to glue this in. So before you glue that in, man, I'm getting really annoyed by all these texts. I haven't got a text all friggin' day, and now I'm getting a million texts while I'm trying to make a video. It's extremely frustrating. Okay, so this guy, yeah, he's a 6mm diameter. So you have to take like an M6 drill bit and drill this channel out right here. And I usually run the drill bit all the way up to maybe about this point right here. You don't want to go too much further because you're going to get into destroying some important surfaces back here. So run the drill bit back to here. And then once you've got that drilled out, you can also separately, you can drill do the same drill bit on the threads right here, and that'll work. Just get them out to a 6mm diameter. But when you go, so I just use super glue to glue these things together. And what I like to do, I make a nice little pool of super glue on some aluminum foil, and then you just dip the tip of a toothpick into that. You don't want to use the applicator on the super glue. You will always use too much. So you just dip the tip of the toothpick in and just kind of paint these surfaces inside here. Just try to stay away from this section right here that's closer to the end. Just maybe paint some in here, and then along the walls. So the goal is when you go to put the threads in, none of the super glue will seep out on these edges, because what I like to do is once I put this in, by the way, this, you know, I made this keyed, so when you put this in, this whole thing doesn't rotate. And I did that because when you go to put there's my little O-ring that I made. This little O-ring just makes the articulation between these two look nicer. When you go to put these together, so this screws on, this is threaded to match those other threads. So you can go ahead, put that part in with the super glue, and then you screw this end on. And the reason for that is there is just a tiny bit of play. There's a 0.1 yeah, I think it's a 0.1 millimeter. I'm not thinking straight right now because I've been so ill for so long. There's a tiny air gap between those threads and the main body. So when you screw this guy on, the purpose of that is to make sure that everything's in perfect alignment. And whenever you've got those threads in, you don't want any of that super glue to be squished out the top and making contact with this. Basically, you don't want to be permanently gluing this front piece on to the main body. So, anyways, so there's that. Let me just turn this main body back off. So like I said, there is just a little O-ring right here. I print it at 0.1 layer heights. And I want to make sure that I'm not lying to you. I'm going to take a measurement of this air gap right here. Because, man, I just can't think straight right now. Where's the length? It's not giving me Minimum distance 0.05. Maybe it's just a 0.0. It's not a much of an air gap at all. All right, so, and then you have the pen front. I'm going to just pull another copy over here so you can see. I print it on this surface right here. Again, no brim, 0.16 millimeter layer heights, and they're pretty easy. I think this part takes about 45 minutes to print. One of my old revisions, you had to drill this out right here with a 2.5 millimeter drill bit. This one, I've pushed it out to 2.9. Yeah, 2.9 diameter on this one, so you don't have to drill this any longer. And I mean, that's really the hardest thing, is getting those threads glued in. You know, once you've done that, you just got a little bit of hardware. The only hardware requirements is a just a short M3 screw, and I apologize, I don't remember the links on any of the screws, but you screw that into here. I don't put this bolt in here and then put the M3 in. Put that M3 into this bolt separately outside of the main body, because you can do damage to the main body if you don't get it in at the right angle. And you don't want to have to start over on this 2-hour print for this main body. So, yeah, just an M3 bolt to go in here in this little hole in the bolt. And then I think it's M2.5 screws. 2 of them goes right here. You have to use 2 because otherwise this thing will be flopping side to side. And let's do a little talking about the spring. So one of the interesting things that I ran into with this build is that, damn it, whenever you unclick it, the bolt from the spring tension at the bottom was slamming up into the top of the pen, and that was putting a lot of shock into the ink cartridge, and the ink cartridge was eventually failing and leaking ink after a few hundred clicks. So what I did is I took a spring from an AR-15 bolt catch, and I believe its diameter's 3.77 millimeters. It's about 10 millimeters long. And I redesigned this end cap to have a nice little, let me turn this off, I don't know if you can see it here. There's a nice little cavity up in here that spring will just press fit into, and it'll be retained up there, so that whenever you unclick this bolt, this slams into that spring, and it's kind of satisfying. The way it hits that spring, it feels a lot like a fidget toy at that point. But more importantly is that spring, I call it, the buffer spring. It protects the cartridge from breaking. So that's its primary purpose. And then for the spring that goes down here on the end of the Parker G2 insert, it's not a standard length, but it is a standard pen spring. You can just get a donor pen from maybe like a bank. There's one of those cheap free pens that are just everywhere. And you do have to trim it down. You trim it down until you get, like on a normal, on pens, when you click it, a little too much comes out on the end. Just get it to where it comes out a little too much, and then it kind of clicks back, and then you have a nice length of the nib sticking out. That's when you know you've cut enough of the spring down. And just do like 1 or 2 coils at a time until you get it down to the right length. And sometimes usually for me, the spring will get stuck in this front piece. So I have one of my pen inserts that's dedicated to fishing that out, because you don't just want to use your good pen insert, because the ball on the end of the pen will get a bunch of flat spots on it and it won't write very well. So just dedicate one of your ink refills to fishing that spring out, and you'll be good to go. And I usually print at 215C, and then I keep my print bed at about 40C. That's just, just tell you some of my print settings. I have a lot more print settings, but that's the basics. But yeah, this pen, it's been pretty resilient for me with this new thread design. I can drop this thing and it's fine. Hits the floor and it's fine. And I don't have, the ink doesn't leak any longer. It's been rock solid, good to go. So, but yeah, if you try this out, leave me some feedback. Let me know if you have printing issues. Let me know if you have ink insert issues. And I designed this with like knockoff Parker G2 inserts. So like I did find that the name brand ones actually don't fit very well with this project. So this one of the knockoffs seems to fit better. But yeah, thank you for watching.